Hi, everyone. Welcome to Author Spotlight. I'm not really sure why our intro decided to just play itself this morning, but that's just fine. It always keeps us on our toes. It is my absolute joy and pleasure to welcome you to our version this week of Author Spotlight with Janet Jacobs, who is the author of Escaping the Bottle: My Journey to Sobriety. So I am going to bring Miss Janet on stage and we're going to spend a little while chatting about this book together. And I can't wait to dive in. Hi, Janet. How are you?
Hi, Leslie. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. You know, your book is it's just a raw, heartfelt memoir about your battle with addiction and shame and self-destruction and the grace that helped pull you through it. At so many turns in this book, I found myself I find myself holding myself right here because you touched me on such a deep level with your genuine sharing of all of yourself without holding anything back. That's such a rare thing. And you know, it's how I try to coach my writers, but it's such a hard thing to do. We tend to want to show the best of ourselves and hope we don't have to talk about that stuff that we don't want to remember. But you shared everything, and in doing so, there is no doubt in my mind that your book, Escaping the Bottle, is going to change life after life after life. So before we dive in, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, Janet, for what you have done in this beautiful, stunning, well written book. And if you would be so kind to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and maybe share something that we might not know about you unless you told us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janet L. Jacobs. Most people call me Janet, so I'm fine. Or you can call me Jan or Jay, but I'm comfortable with it all. I am a wife, a mother, grandmother, friend by profession. I'm a professional chaos coordinator. All my life, I've been keeping people in line and keeping people in check. And one thing that you may or may not know about me is that I'm a crafter. I love to knit. I love to crochet. I love to cook. I love to recreate recipes on that sort of thing. But I am naturally a homebody. But I love my family and my friends hard.
That's so cool. I remember reading that you were a crafter and had made a note to myself to ask you what crafts you're involved in because I too am a lover of crafting and as you know, of baking and cooking and all those things. So we have quite a few things in common. So, what led you to follow your calling and follow your heart and write this book?
What led me to, I wouldn't necessarily say that it was my calling to write this book. I had come off an illness and I was just looking for things to keep myself busy and came across the Victorious U Press 3-day writing seminar. And I had participated in the seminar years ago, but did not follow through at that time with the story that I was telling. And I now realize that that wasn't the story that I was supposed to tell. The story I was supposed to tell is the one that I'm dealing with right now. And so I just jumped in to do it. I was, going to take the 3-day course and that was going to be it, reconnect myself. And then I felt this calling to just go ahead and jump in and do it. And I'm just so happy that I did.
We are too. We're thrilled that you did. It was a great process. So, what what was the personal experience in your life that prompted this exact story that you chose to tell?
What prompted this exact story to tell was I was using alcohol as a coping mechanism. in my life. I've experienced many um, things that did not feel so great to me, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And alcohol turned out to be the one thing I can use to kind of hide and suppress what I was feeling. And I didn't think I was hurting anyone but
Mhm.
myself. And I didn't realize that I was hurting my family as well and those around me. And what led to this dark day was I ended up being hospitalized. And I was home alone, and my husband and my son was out of town. And I was so sick, I thought I was going to die by myself. And I ended up in the hospital, and they told me I was alcohol dependent, which I didn't want to believe. And they said medical results and tests, and your body is saying different things. You know, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to die. And so that, you know, even with that, you would think that I would stop drinking, but I didn't. And I was caught drinking a few times by my husband. And he just gave me the ultimatum that I'm going to make a choice to do something different, or he's going to make it for me.
Boom. Wow. What a moment. I mean, I've thought about that from your perspective and from his, and I can't imagine what a difficult day that must have been.
It was dark and scary. And to this day, even thinking about it now, I choke up. You have to excuse me because I'm just, it was serious. And I never thought that I should look at it from someone else's perspective. And
Mhm.
that day, seeing it on his face, and then hearing it in my daughter's voice on the phone, that I knew that I had to do something.
And you did it. And that's what it's all about, right? You were faced with that. That could have been your moment when you were in the hospital, but it wasn't quite yet.
No.
But you had that moment in that day when you realized this is it. And so God bless you for recognizing that and then moving forward, because that was just the beginning of your hard work.
It was.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you did the 3-day challenge and you had every intention of taking the 3-day challenge and going on with your life. What was the moment, the catalyst, the trigger that made you realize, okay, this is the moment that Janet is meant to get this book written?
Well, participating in the 3-day challenge, I met an awesome group of women, such as yourself, and then Elder Joan and the other people of the Victorious You Press, but also the participants, and everyone had a story. And once we started introducing our topics, and we were going through and asking many questions and then learning new things in that short 3 days, I knew I couldn't stop. I knew I had to continue. Whether I was prepared to continue or not, I just figured I had to take the leap and do it.
I don't know if anybody felt they were prepared at that point as I look back on the end of those 3 days.
It was scary, just the thoughts of even, producing something more. I thought, here I am, I'm going to take this 3-day class and I'm going to continue to journal and write. And then maybe one day, and then you come to the realization on the last day, like, this is the day.
It's here. So for you personally, what was the most challenging part of making that choice of being so raw and open and vulnerable and not holding anything back in your writing?
Because I promised, once I started to get help, to help myself with this problem that I was having, I needed to be honest. First of all, with myself, and then be honest with God, and be honest with my family. And so you just have to go all out and lean into it, even though it was difficult. I visited a lot of dark days from my past, not even just this situation, but other situations I've had in my life. And it really confronts you. And what really got me, Leslie, was that I'm used to dealing with dark situations, or even happy situations. Let's just go there. It doesn't have to be dark, but happy situations via alcohol.
Mm.
And going through this past year's journey of learning how to cope with life and deal with life without alcohol, living sober is crazy because you no longer have that crutch.
Yeah. Well, I commend you for that rawness, because that in and of itself is what is going to allow readers to see themselves in your writing. And I think that's a point that's missed by lots of writers. They think that they can maybe generalize or dance around things without being quite so vulnerable and still get their message out there. But it's when we read something that we connect with on the personal level that gives us that aha moment, whether to help ourselves or help someone else. So that's the power of this book, is your vulnerability.
It is, being vulnerable is it's hard because then you're showing people a part of yourself. I have always been a somewhat private person. Instead of confronting a situation, I'll just cut it off. I can go
Mhm.
years without speaking to somebody. I'll just cut it off and I won't have to deal with it. But being sober and going through this process has forced me to, hey, you have to deal with it, whatever it is. You just have to deal with it. You have to be honest with yourself and you just walk through it. And I've had to deal with a lot of difficult things and have difficult conversations behind it. But you know what? There's a freedom behind that. There's a freedom behind not having to hide anymore. I
That's
just feel so open.
wow. What an encouragement to someone who's struggling with making the commitment to stop whatever it may. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be other forms of addiction. So it's so exciting to hear that there is joy in the other side of the addiction, because it seems so big and so daunting, I'm sure, when you're starting out.
When you're starting out, it feels somewhat shameful. It's like
Mm.
everyone knows now. I just spoke with a relative last week, and I've been posting online about the book coming out and everything. And even she, and we're close as cousins, she said, "You?" I
Mm.
said, "Why not me? Yes, me." And she said, "No one would have ever known." That's how much of a private person I am.
Mm. Mm. Well, I would like to share just a couple of things. I know I have so many excerpts from your book. I could fill the next half an hour with reading them. I'm just going to share a few
Okay.
that really stuck out to me, that I just loved. And one of them was when you were talking about how God worked on you. He did it through the small things: an empty chair I always sat in, the smell of coffee, and an endless supply of something sweet on the kitchen table, the sound of the serenity prayer, steps, traditions, promises. That's how God worked on me, in the ordinary, the uncomfortable, the unseen. And I think that spoke to my heart, because it is the small steps of life that make all the difference. And it's the choice that we make as human beings in opening our hearts to those small moments.
I have to be honest with you, in making the choice and writing about sitting in the chair and the smell of the coffee and the way the room felt. I only went to a recovery program because it was an ultimatum. If it was truly up to me, I would have still been drinking. In my case, is drinking, but for others, whatever the addiction is. And
Mm,
it was the ultimatum. I was just trying to make it back home that evening.
yeah.
But I was encouraged to keep going and I went. I even sat in rooms and said, "Hi, I'm Janet, an alcoholic," and didn't even still believe that I was. I was just saying it to go along and get along and be included, because I didn't want them to throw me out of there.
Right.
I'm in there pretending or whatever. But as the time went on, you know, my light bulb came on. Let's just say God showed up for me. He's always been there for me. It's up to me to reach my hand back out,
Mm,
reconnect myself with God.
absolutely. Absolutely. Another one that oh gosh, I just love this so much. I thought forgiveness was about forgetting, but it's about the letting go of what no longer serves me. I release the need to be mothered by the woman who birthed me. I release the ache that waited for her to change. And in that, I've found peace.
Wow. On this point, just to give a little synopsis, I wasn't raised by my birth mother. I was raised by my father's side of the family, my grandmother, my aunts, my uncles. They all loved me very much. But trying to establish a relationship, because everybody wants to know where they come from, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then once you meet your parent, and don't get me wrong, I am not bad mouthing my mom at all, period. Disclaimer. But the relationship just wasn't what I thought it would be. And I always yearned to be loved by her. And I believe she loved me, but in her own way. And because the relationship was volatile, it didn't serve me, it didn't feel good. And that was another thing for me with the drinking, because she drank, I drank, we drank, and that was just a way of dealing with it. And what broke me was that we were not in a good place when she passed. um, I had, I've decided not to be a part of her life because it was detrimental to me and my emotional health. And in the interim, she was ill and she passed. And it was just eating me at my soul
Mm.
that she passed and we had not made that reconnection or tried to make things right. And that's what really broke me. And the drinking got heavier and heavier. But then once I've gone through this recovery process, I've learned that she gave me all that she could. And I appreciate the fact that she birthed me and I'm here. And I had to let that go. The little girl in me finally had to let that go. And I learned that through this recovery process.
That's such a huge but small piece, is when you get to the point where you can say with certainty that you let go and you realize that your parents did the best they could with the tools that they had at the time. That is such a moment of freedom. And that doesn't mean that your healing's done. It may simply be the beginning point, but it's a huge moment when you're able to let go of the burden of feeling that someone, maybe not even a parent, but another important influence in your life, maybe set out to be hurtful to you. And so often that's not the case. They're just doing the best they can. It's just not what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So one more very quick one, and that really ties into this, is the sentence where you said, I grew up trying to earn what should have been free. That one grabbed at my heartstrings too, because that is behind so much of addiction, but it's also behind all kinds of overcompensating as we move into adolescence and our teenage years and then adulthood, is realizing that we are maybe competing with ourselves, trying to earn something that should be free, which is the unconditional love of parents.
Not necessarily just parents. I'll jump in. All my life, I've been somewhat the odd person. I was teased because I was too thin, teased because I was a little heavy and fluffy. I was always something to somebody's they did not like, or, was just often just put out in the forefront of being teased and not. I didn't have good self-esteem, and that carried me all through my life. And even today, I still struggle sometimes with certain situations. But, things in life we take for granted that should be free, and they just simply aren't sometimes. And I'm hoping that, my story will help other people in the same situation as me, open up and just learn to embrace yourself. Another part of this recovery program is that I have learned to really find out who I am And I actually even like me. I think I'm a pretty cool person, something that I never really, set out to do before. I may have looked like I've had it all together, the way I dress and, the way I make myself up and things like that. But people don't know I did the outside to compensate the inside. So if I look good on the outside, I did that to make myself feel good on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So powerful. And this all is going to be so helpful to people, again, who see themselves in your words and see themselves in your circumstances. So let's shift into the writing process, because that's such an important part of this. I'm curious about what your writing process was like. Was it, because you and I know you had a very short window of time to get this all written. Did you have a routine? Did you have a strategy? Or was it sort of more organic in nature?
Well, in the writing program, the 3 days we discussed, and even the cohort, we discussed a sample of what we should be doing and writing and how many words per day, or, what that works out into. But then life happens. You go through stuff. Many women are working. I'm working. You're working. We have other obligations between work life, home life, just things that come up in general. And I tried to do the bulk of my writing in the evening times when I could, when I can actually sit for an hour and be comfortable and be free. But sometimes you just didn't get it then. So you end up jotting down a bunch of stuff and then coming back to revisit. But the schedule was tight, it was rigorous. But I will say, had it not been for that schedule, I would not have been able to put this book out in 30 days. And that discipline resonated into other areas of my life, on the job, my family life, how I deal with people. So that discipline really came in handy and translated across other areas of my life, to which I hold on to today.
Oh, that's so interesting. And I'm glad you mentioned that, we did give you a very tight structure. However, as you said, life intervenes. But the important part of knowing that that structure is there is that it helps you keep from deviating too far off the path, because you need to come back to catching up a little bit. Whereas if you didn't have the structure in place, you may just keep going off the path.
Excuse me.
So how did you deal with self-doubt that might have crept in when you were going through writing your book? How did you push through that and get to the other side?
That was very hard. There was many tears and many days of frustration. But what helped me was, for one, encouraging someone saying something nice to me, or someone saying, hey, I didn't know you did this, or hey, you were going through this, or even someone in my recovery program, you know, my shares or my stories or my experiences, and also supporting someone else. When you support someone else, that makes you feel good. You don't do it to self-serve, but it just, gives you that happiness feeling, the endorphins, if you may, and then it gives you the light to keep carrying on. But there were days where I felt like I was silly, and it was dumb for me to even think about doing something like this, or how dare I, or whatever. But I just kept going, and by the grace of God, pushed through and got it done.
So how did the influence of coaching and community and accountability play into getting, then pushing through that and getting to the finish line, especially as related to doing this writing through our self-publishing cohort?
I actually developed a relationship with all the individuals in the cohort. There are some powerful women. In our instance, it was women. We didn't have a gentleman, but I'm sure there are gentlemen out there. But we were able to feed off of each other, coach each other, run things by each other, even if it was just a hello, hey, how you doing? Just checking in, or just bouncing ideas off of each other. It's like, that's a community. Well, in our part, I just consider everybody family at this point, but it was a family. And when one person's down or one person's out of luck or dragging around, we just uplift each other. And the prayers went out. I'm a believer, so we did pray and we did believe in each other and things like that. So that just really helped moving along. Even the self doubt, especially. Like, even in the back of my mind now, I have to launch this book. In the back of my mind, I'm like, how am I supposed to do this? But I'm encouraged and I know it's going to get done.
And, writing is such a solo experience. And when you're writing on your own and you don't have that community, it can be kind of depressing and it can really pull a lot of energy from you. And one of the big things that I've noticed about the cohort is the opposite is true. It energizes and it spreads throughout everyone. And those, as you said, those relationships are established that continue past the cohort, which is a really wonderful thing. And I encourage writers, if you're not involved in some kind of a cohort or community, to find one, even if it is an online book group, and we also have the Books to Business and Beyond Facebook group that has over 2,000 members in it. It's a great way to find maybe a few people within that resonate with you, that you think you'd like to connect with, that you build a community around, because that helps keep your feet to the fire to go from idea to writing to finish line.
Yes.
So looking back now, I mean, you're not quite launched, but you're ready to go. What was the most surprising thing to you about the actual process of publishing a book?
The actual process was so surprising to me. The fact that it could get done in the 30 days. That was the most surprising thing. The other surprising thing to me was learning how to do book covers. I've never done a book cover before on my own, and pulled that book cover out, and I second guessed it so many times. I was going to exchange it. I was going to use an actual picture of myself. And then I said, you know what? I like what's here. Learning how to do that, learning that I am an author and that I know how to put my own words together without having someone come behind me. I actually like what I write, and I'm finding my own way with this, and I want to continue with it. But like I said, I would want to say the 30 and 30, the 30 days was the best.
Yeah, it is hard to imagine that could possibly be true. And I have to say, your book cover, it's the bomb. It's absolutely amazing. So what is the one thing, if you can narrow it down, I know it's hard, that you would want your readers to come away with when they finish the book?
That there is hope and belief for everyone. You don't have to be limited. Being an alcoholic, there's no label or a certain way. I'm an alcoholic. You know what I mean? The person over there can be an alcoholic. There's just no difference. And you can go and get help if you want it. There's help everywhere for people who want the help. You just have to put the work in. And I'm just so grateful. Even this writing process has further helped my journey, my sobriety journey. And I just, I have to be honest, I haven't even read the book. I wrote the book and I've gleamed over different things. And I actually sat down and read the book a few days ago, and I shocked myself looking at it. I'm like, I wrote this. And I put the words together, but the finished product and looking at it, it's so encouraging. I would just encourage everyone just to believe in yourself, that you can do it. You have faith. Have faith in God, or whatever God of your choosing. Just have faith in it and just be encouraged. And don't be afraid to hide. Don't tell. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, I'm getting...
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's a big one. That's a big one, is asking for help. But again, now that has so much to do with the community. And letting others support you. I know that's my biggest challenge, is to let someone else support me. And that's the beauty of community. So what's next for you? Do you have another project in the works? Do you have another project planned? What can we look forward to next?
I have another project in the works that I've started. I'm actually doing a companion journal to Escaping the Bottle. It'll be a companion prayer journal. There's a sample of it in the back of Escaping the Bottle. So when you purchase it, you will see. I believe it's next to the last chapter. And it will have a quote and a prayer and some questions, some bullet point questions for you. And that's what I'm working on.
That sounds great. And have you given any thought to taking that and doing some workshops with it, some in-person workshops?
I am very open to doing that. I actually have a spot on my webpage at janetlljacobs.com that if you would like to book me to speak, I'm very open to coming out and presenting more of Escaping the Bottle and ideas and coping mechanisms and things like that. So I'm very open to it, to expound.
I'm so glad to hear that, because when I think about you in this book, I always see you leading a workshop. In my mind, you are in front of a group of people doing workshops. So I'm glad that you are open to that. And you gave me a great segue. Tell us all the ways that people can find you, connect with you, and maybe share with us if you're, I didn't say it out loud because I want you to do it only if you're ready to share your launch day with us, and then how people can find you.
Well, God willing, I want to launch Escaping the Bottle, My Journey to Sobriety on October 7th. It will be a live launch, much this time, either 12 or 1 p.m. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. I believe I'm Janet L. Jacobs across the board. My website is janetlljacobs.com. My email address, if you want to reach me, it's a little unconventional, but it's janetthethea4@gmail.com. That's my email address that I have now. And I'm willing and open. I welcome all comments, all suggestions, any collaborations. I've had a couple of people contact me to do a collaboration on TikTok. Somebody wants to collaborate on Instagram. So I'm just open to it all. Like, this is the journey that's going to continue for me. It's becoming a lifestyle, and I'm very grateful for it.
That is wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm so happy for you, and so proud of how open you've remained. And it's been such a thrill to watch your blossoming over the course of the cohort, and then just continuing. I just feel like you're stepping into yourself with each new day, and in your own words, that you're open to what comes your way. You're open to where the Lord leads you. And that's such a beautiful thing. So thank you for today. I appreciate you so much. And remember, if you are sitting on a story of your own, remember, you don't have to do it alone. And that's really what our self-publishing cohort is all about. And as a matter of fact, we are doing another 3-day challenge coming up just next week. I think it's at the end of the month. I think it starts on September 27th. You can go to our Facebook page, which is Books to Business and Beyond, and get some specific information about that 3-day challenge. So until next time, I invite you to keep writing and keep building your legacy in ink. And Janet, thank you again for joining us today. And I can't wait for October 4th.
October 7th.
October 7th, I'm sorry. October 7th. Thank you for correcting me. All right. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Mm-hmm.